I herewith open this public meeting of the Island Council for today, Thursday, May 28. I would like to welcome those present in the hall, as well as the general public listening by way of radio and the social media page, Station Government. I invite us all to please stand in respect of the local anthem, the Golden Rock Song. You may be seated. We continue to agenda point 2, which are the announcements. I would like to announce that Council Lady Mercedes Lopes-Spanner is absent with notice. I also received note that Commissioner Recheline Leerdam is awaiting a medical clearance to resume work and hope to be cleared later today, and for that reason, she's unable to attend this afternoon's meeting. I look to you, the members of the Island Council, if there are any other announcements from your part. Council members? Considering there are no announcements further, we move to agenda point 3. I will first read the agenda as was published per the articles of regulation of the Island Council. 1, opening. 2, announcements. 3, setting of the agenda and continuation of Island Council meeting of May 7th, 2026. 4 is the Court of Audit Annual Report 2025. 5, State of Affairs, Agriculture Department. And then extra agenda item of Island Council meeting. We have a joint cooperation agreement, Caribbean Public Entities, announcement, Executive Council and Island Governor, and then the closing. I understand that the agenda point 6 will be removed until it is further discussed with Bonaire and will be scheduled for a future meeting. I also understand from the registrar that there was an urgent proposal made to the Island Council regarding support in the position to strengthen the request for additional funds for the restoration and expansion of the breakwater. I look to the members of the Island Council if this topic, along with the proposal and proposed decision, can be added to the agenda. Councilman Van Putten, you may address the meeting.
Madam Speaker, members of the Council and others present and those listening by the various platforms. With regards to the removal of the agenda point with the joint cooperation, I have no problems with that. I also took note of a note that was sent by the Office of the Griffier to discuss some concern with regards to the situation at the harbor. I would not put any stumbling blocks. But with regards to the continuation, there was a debate back and forth. I still have some concerns about the procedure because I know continuation is continuation, then you don't bring other agenda points. But it is what it is. What I took note of is that you announced that the commissioner responsible for, well, commissioner in general, but the agenda point with regards to the state of affairs of the Agriculture Department, that falls directly on her. She has been actively involved in it. And because of the importance of the point for us, I don't want to go into a debate on the matter. And then later you hear that I can't answer because I'm not aware of it. It's not my portfolio. All the government is collectivity. And I'm not going to hold anybody hostage if they don't feel comfortable about it. I think that the commissioner, in all fairness, and I wish her well, I hope she get well soon, I think it is important that she be here to be able to answer some of these direct questions. So I'm looking to the Griffier, who is a legal advice for us. If this extended meeting continuation could be placed on a follow-up meeting, we could have a follow-up meeting. Because again, I'm saying, seeing the importance of the point, I think it is fair to give the commissioner the opportunity to be able to answer whatever question may arise from the meeting. So I ask the cooperation of the chair, to consider having this continuation done at a later date, that can be agreed between the office of the Khalifi, the chair, and the faction, so that we would be able to do justice to the point and the public will get the clarity that they are seeking at this time. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Councilman Clyde Van Putten. The continuation of the council meeting of May 7th included also agenda point 4, which is the Court of Audit report.
Yes.
So the agreement is we maintain that at that one and we continue further on the state of affairs of Agriculture Department. Do I understand it that way?
Yes, because I don't have a problem if we approve or disapprove the issue of the Court of Audit, because we did ask for additional information. It's now in. So for me, I don't have an issue with it anymore. I look at it and I would vote accordingly. But we're at the point of the state of affairs at the Agriculture Department. Again, I want to repeat, because the commissioner who has been fully involved with this particular issue, or the issues that are taking place here, I think it will be much more prudent and appropriate for her to be present, to be able to answer whatever questions and concerns that we may have. So I'm requesting that that follow-up meeting be placed, for a later date when she will be available.
And if I take your request, I will look to the other members of the Island Council who will then need to support your requests. Councilman Glenville Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to everyone present and those following us. I have no objection to the request of my colleague, Mr. Van Putten, to remove the agenda point for this meeting until a follow meeting is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Schmidt. Councilman Derek Simmons.
I have no objection.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Councilman Derek Simmons. I will now, with everyone's permission, thank you very much, Registrar. This is would have been the second time this agenda point is tabled. I will then do everything within my possibilities to ensure that we have a follow-up meeting as soon as possible. I will coordinate this with the Registrar's Office and the portfolio holder concerned. If I go now to look at the new agenda, it will read as follows. Agenda point 1, opening. Agenda 2, announcements. 3, setting of the agenda. Continuation of Island Council meeting of May 7th, Court of Audit Annual Report 2025. That will be agenda point 4. And agenda point 5, 6 then for the extra agenda item of the Island Council meeting of today will be then become the request for additional funds for the harbor master, including Raadsbesluit, Council's decision. Seven, announcements, Executive Council and Island Governor. 8, closing. Let me get some clarification here. There is a request from the Executive Council with regards to the harbor and the breakwater for additional funds. And the suggestion is that that now can be placed where the joint cooperation agreement has been removed. Repeat what you requested, Councilman Van Putten. I think we have a little different of opinion because I understood you clearly. Continuation of continuation of the Island Council meeting of the 7th. There are 2 agenda points remaining because the commissioners are unable to be here, and the topic regarding the state of agriculture, you have requested and gained the support for this topic to be removed. In the interim, there's also a request from the Executive Council for the harbor expansion and the urgency surrounding the additional funds for the breakwater. So looking at agenda, the extra agenda items, which for the council meeting on May 27th, the joint cooperation agreement has been removed because you need further deliberations with the partner island Bonaire. And the question is, do we add the additional point here regarding the breakwater?
Madam Speaker, seeing that we agree that the Court of Audit information is available, that can continue, so that we can approve that one way or the other. And then the state of affairs of agriculture, I asked for it to be delayed. So I would suggest the request from the government concerning the issue of the port, that come into place, so that become number 5. Yes.
Now we are very clear. We'll read it one more time.
Yes.
The agenda is now proposed as 1, opening, 2, announcements, 3, setting of the agenda regarding the continuation of the Island Council meeting of May 7th. The 4th agenda point will then become the Court of Audit Annual Report 2025. And the extra agenda for the Island Council meeting, May 28, will be requests funding harbor breakwater, including the Raadsbesluit. That becomes agenda point 5. 6 becomes the announcements, and 7 becomes closing. And with everyone's approval, I herewith ratify the agenda as agreed upon. Thank you, members of the Island Council. We move now to agenda point 4, Court of Audit Annual Report 2025. This agenda point was discussed during the meeting of May 7th. However, additional information regarding the equalization process still needed to be provided by the finance unit. Therefore, prior to making a decision, the Island Council concluded that they would like to receive additional information. I now look to Commissioner Ruben Merkman if there's any further information to be shared relating to this topic. I believe the registrar would have provided the members also with additional information, but I give you the floor, Commissioner Merkman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I was not in the last meeting, but I think the requested information has been received and disseminated to the Island Council.
Thank you, Commissioner Merkman. Members of the Island Council, is there a need to debate this topic further, or can we go forward with your vote on the audit, the Court of Audits annual report for 2025? Councilman Clive Van Putten.
Madam Chair, I have no problem in actually voting on the matter. We read though that it's almost 2 weeks ago that we should have voted on this, and because of the lack of certain information, that this was not the case. And as I stepped in the legislative hall, and I was handed, the additional information that was requested. But having said that, I look at it, I had some additional information because I asked questions and so forth. So I have no problem in lending my support when it comes to voting on the proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilman Clyde Van Putten. I conclude, therefore, that there is no need for deliberation on this topic, and I would look to the Council if their proposal is to approve by acclamation. Gentlemen, I herewith approve the proposal on the Court of Audit Annual Report 2025 by acclamation. Agenda point 5. Regards requests funding, additional funding for harbor breakwater. And I would like to share here that on this agenda point 5, it is so that I believe last week or earlier this week, there was a request, a meeting, closed door meeting between members of the Island Council and the responsible commissioner regarding this topic. And I now look to, I see that Commissioner Merkman is here and also supported by Casper of the PPMO. And I would like to give the commissioner the opportunity to give further elucidation, because I believe you were not in that meeting, Councilman Van Putten, because you had other engagements that were planned previously. And so I would like to give them the opportunity to further elaborate on this, and also the Raadsbesluit that has been presented, to take that into consideration. But I see that you have a point of clarification.
Yes, I think that irrespective of whatever is presented, there would be comments or questions. And I would like to propose 20 in 10 minutes, 20 in the first round and 10. My position is very clear, where it pertains to decisions of this government. But at the same point in time, I have said before that if there are issues that I perceive that is in the general interest of the country, that I will take those in consideration. But it doesn't mean that I will just rubber stamp, and go along without asking and making comments or even criticism where necessary. So I would await the presentation by the expert, and of course I may have some comments or some questions and so forth. And then I would see where the spirit lead me with regards to the casting of my vote. Thank you very much.
Understood, Councilman Clyde Van Putten. There is a request on the table from Councilman Van Putten to expand the speaking rounds to round 1, 20 minutes, round 2, 10 minutes. Councilman Glenville Schmidt. No objection. Councilman Derek Simmons. So, speaking round, first round, 20 minutes, second round, 10 minutes. Based on the order that you registered when entering the hall, the speaking order is as follows. Once you reach that point, Councilman Clyde Van Putten will be the first speaker, Councilman Glenville Smith, second speaker, and third speaker will be Councilman Derek Simmons. You may now address the meeting, Commissioner Ruben Merkman, along with your support staff for questions afterwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is the position of the Executive Council that, based on what we are confronted with, it would be pertinent, relevant for the Island Council to use their influence to lobby by the financiers of projects to acquire funding for the expansion and safeguarding of our harbor. Stacia's Harbor is the island's lifeline, and it is because of climate change that we are now confronted with changes within the harbor that we didn't expect. And one of the things that I do not want to engage in scaremongering, but we all know what happens when there's north swells or if there's a hurricane. Then we are, because we are so dependent on import for most of our food or consumption, it means that ships that normally would come into the harbor, and I think we experienced that either earlier this year or late last year, we experienced that where we were, I think it was probably a week and a half, 2 weeks without boats being able to come into the harbor. And we are living in, the reality is that we live in the hurricane area, hurricane belt. So if we have a hurricane, it is based on research that has been done that probably the breakwater that we have now could not prevent more damage being done on the inside, or even the breakwater being damaged to a greater extent, because because of climate change, the sea the sea level it continues to increase, and hurricanes are becoming more stronger, so you're getting bigger waves, and now the waves are now crashing over the breakwater. So in light of all of that, we wanted to expand already the breakwater to protect the inside, because we all know what happened with the boardwalk when it was created. It didn't really last too long because of north swells. And so we as an executive council, we felt that the best thing to do was to try to protect the harbor first, whatever we have on the inside. And so therefore we approached the ministry to see, because there was some money available, I think it was 15 million that was there for the expansion of the harbor and the breakwater to some degree. And we felt expanding the breakwater was not going to be big enough, or it wasn't going to go far enough to prevent damage being done on the inside, or the safe conduit of boats even during north swells. So we said to the ministry, listen, just give us a breakwater so that we can protect what we have on the inside now. Let's give us so we can protect what we have on the inside now. And that's where they came back and they did a research on the breakwater, and it turned out that the breakwater was in a bad state. It wasn't in a state that we could use it. We have to replace that totally. And that, with the 15 million that we have, that wasn't even going to be able to do anything to create what we need. So based on analysis, it was concluded that you need about 40 million more. And if we compare it to how other harbors in the Dutch Kingdom were created, Sabre Harbor, they're going to be building a harbor in Sabre, and they were able to lobby over many years to be able to now be in position to make the Black Rock Harbor. So based on that, the Executive Council used the motivation again that if the Black Rock Harbor is being created in close to us and a lot of the X blocks are being done on Statia, why don't we just try to approach the ministry to get more funding, which will, because of logistic involved, it will be cheaper for us. Because if all the infrastructure is already on Statia, the other company, whoever company is going to be doing it, don't need to come from anywhere. They're already here. So, so that would mean it would come out cheaper for us. But we do need 40 million. So that means that now we have already been having discussions with the ministry, which is our counterpart, and the idea came up, why not enlist the help of the Island Council to also lobby, because they are the ones that are the counterparts of the parliament, and the parliament is the one what makes the decision over the ministries, just like the Island Council is over the Executive Council. And so we said, let's bring this to the Island Council to get their support. So that's why we are here today, to enlist your help to facilitate the lobbying in Holland and the Netherlands for the harbor. And the reality is we need 40 million to be able to do that. And we have a presentation that is going to be done by one of our senior civil servants, and then we'll go from there. But the breakwater is what we need. We need a breakwater to protect the import of food, and also to be able to increase the possibilities within the breakwater. When you have a breakwater, it means also that boats that come to Statia, like little yachts, can now come inside the breakwater and have a calm area, which means that they can stay longer in the harbor. Because one of the biggest complaints that you get from what we have now, when yachts come in the harbor, is they're saying, listen, the boats are bouncing up and down and we can't sleep at night. You know, so if we get the breakwater the way we are proposing with the additional 40 million, that would mean that we will have a calm area inside, which would also boost our tourism product. So with that, I want to leave it there for now, and I'll ask your indulgence for Mr. Casper Yora to make a presentation in that area.
Thank you, Casper. You will work with the technical team and get your information ready so that you can present to the Island Council and by extension the community of St. Eustatius to gain the necessary insight.
Is this on? Yeah. Members of the Island Council, Madam Governor, Executive Council. Thank you for the opportunity to once again stress the importance of our harbor. I think it has been said by Commissioner Merkman, and many will know before, as also mentioned during the closed-door session. The harbor of Statia is our lifeline, and I think in many ways, almost literally. It's the main place where we import our goods. It's the main place where we import our food, even though there's great initiatives ongoing, such as Made in Statia. The vast majority of our food comes through the harbor. Equally, when we do have hurricanes or other disasters, the first point of call for our relief is also the harbor. It's also a point of our economic development, and it's an area that should protect us against expected changes in our climate in the future. So we all know the importance of the harbor. So just to make the shift to what's being done in the harbor. Because we know it is important, in following the hurricanes Irma and Maria, there was indeed 17 million made available for repairs. That started a process of thinking about what the future of our harbor could look like. Spreading that out in different phases, making sure that we can start working on areas that are available to us right now, and other areas which would require much more thought, research and marine expertise, marine consulting construction expertise. So to start that process, we focused initially on while making a larger plan, multiple phases. The first phase was pulled out, which was the phase 0, which is the paving of the container yard. That work has commenced. They are currently, as we speak, preparing the paving of a large piece of the container yard. Already the new walkway for pedestrians is being poured, and so that work is ongoing. The second phase, or I should say phase 1 actually, of the harbor renovations is the reparation and renovation of the breakwater and the extension to meet climate change needs and the safeguarding of our harbor. In that process, we started 2 years ago, specifically with the preparations for the design of the breakwater. When we started that design, we knew it needed to be longer for sure. As we started preparing these designs, we invited organizations with expertise on marine consulting and construction to provide us the updated guidelines for protecting our harbor for the future against things like climate change. That resulted in aspects like we needed to accommodate a higher wave height, 6.5 meters instead of the 4.5 meters that was in older guidelines, and of course higher water levels. These higher water levels also mean that even smaller storms can have deteriorating or larger effects. So when that came out, we knew that the breakwater, in its full extension, needed to be higher and wider to protect us against these changes. As we started the investigation earlier this year in more detail of the existing breakwater, we uncovered that the tows, which is the under part of the breakwater, showed more washout than initially anticipated. Additionally, we identified that the rock constellation of the breakwater itself had smaller bricks and rubble than we had anticipated, or that we were expecting based on the original designs. That means that in the existing state, the current breakwater is in a poorer state than we would expected, to the extent that if we would now be hit by a 1 in 50 years or a 1 in 100 years storm, there's a considerable chance that rubble might end up in the harbor area itself, making the harbor unusable, and at the same time it needed to be strengthened in long run. Those findings came during the detailed research of the last couple of months and couldn't have been anticipated earlier. In collaboration with the various ministries, we've had very cooperative stances, very much understanding. Very many of the committees that visit the island, delegations that visited the island, they took the opportunity to listen to the current state of the breakwater, anywhere from the state secretary to the DG of Kingdom Relations and others. So we have very much cooperation in the Netherlands. The urgency in Ministry of Infrastructure and Water is well known. We know that there's a direction towards green growth and climate adaptation. There's a possibility there to look for additional funding for this harbor. And also because it's our lifeline towards economic development, that's also an avenue that we want to explore further with Den Haag. Now the urgency is much higher than in recent awarded fundings for harbors such as Terschelling or Seba, because they had multiple years to prepare. We don't. We're in an ongoing project. The preparations are in place. This is not a matter of let's ask for the money and then we start planning. No, this is a project in full swing where we can leverage the synergies with Seba. We can produce our own X blocks or other materials right here on Statia of a high level quality, and that's a unique opportunity. That also means that it's quite urgent. And while we have good relationships with the Netherlands and there is a listening ear and understanding of our situations, it would greatly help the cause if the members of the Island Council and the Island Council would further support this through their channels in helping Statia remain self-reliant and safeguard our harbor, safeguard our lifeline to food security and further economic development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We now move over to the members of the Island Council for any further questions and inquiries that they may have regarding this very important topic. The speaking order is as follows. The first to address the floor will be Councilman Clyde Van Putten. Second, Councilman Glenville Schmidt. Third, Councilman Simmons. Councilman Van Putten, you may address the floor. 20 minutes in the first round and 10 minutes second round.
Madam Speaker, my clock says 1:54. So I hope it's in sync with that of the General Secretary. Speaker, I said earlier today when I took note of the memo that came via the office of the General Secretary, that I was very much at awe and surprise. And even in her chambers, I expressed my concern and indignation that we were discussing such a topic here today. And the reason why I said this, I recall that as far back as 2023, and maybe even before, we were discussing the developments at the harbor. And I think that it gained more steam when we took note of the decision of the government in The Hague to finance what I will call a state-of-the-art harbor for our sister island, Saba. And in mentioning it, it is in no way being jealous or being negative because I have publicly congratulated them. I think that it is in place. But I, at that time, expressed some concern owing to the fact that we had a good pair here on the island, I think in the 70s. And we know that over the years, friend and foe criticized the government of the day who went along with the Netherlands in having this pier demolished after a hurricane, and it was alleged that it was not in good condition. We know that we got a pier. It is said it's in the first phase, and maybe it's 40 years or more. Maybe, I'm not saying it's 40, but I'm back here at least 40 plus. And I think before I left, that pier was blown down. And one always wonder why governments, successive governments over the years were unable to convince the Netherlands to be able to complete phase 2 and 3. I remember the good days when many of the larger ships came from Miami right to Statia. And then with smaller vessels, the goods was transported to St. Martin, Saba, and elsewhere. And we see the opposite, and the high financial costs that businesses and residency on the island have to pay in order to be able to transport their goods. And we know, no doubt, with the current state of affairs, with the war between Iran and the United States, that definitely it will have its toll. I know that in 2023, I think it was, that there was a presentation made in the legislative hall down at the government guest house. And at that point in time, I for sure asked a poignant question as to why we were getting what I describe as cosmetic window dressing as far as our pay is concerned, and was mentioned by the professional. We always say that the pay, or the harbor rather, is the lifeline, the breadline of the island, and I truly believe that. And because of that, seeing the investment that was being made in Sable, why as a government we accepted that. I remember in the faction back then, the then commissioner responsible for the harbor was questioned on the matter with our colleague, and basically the response that we get that they were not in favor, they were not aware. But only weeks and months later, in that meeting, we were confronted with the fact and signature where a decision was made by the Executive Council, I think it is July, August of 2023, accepting what was proposed. So that was the first disappointment as far as I was concerned. Subsequently, I think since the current portfolio holder, the female commissioner, is now responsible for the harbor, I think that it was in some setting that she indicated that they were making changes based on the proposal that was there. I think the whole issue of the breakwater and the explanation that was given by her colleague, that they were using that opportunity in order to make the amends. So I want to now, based on the document that I see here coming from the Executive Council, can the Executive Council explain what happened to the plans that was there before? Because, like I said, there was an original plan that was agreed to, then the big amendments. A certain amount of money was earmarked. What happened to that? Is that money still available? Would that money form part of the overall amount that the commissioner alluded to? The Executive Council also announced those plans, but they spoke of the deteriorating situation at the harbor. How long was the Executive, is the Executive Council aware of these deteriorating situation? Because I think that several members came here in the past and they spoke about the state of affairs of the harbor. So I would like to know how long the Executive Council, because I heard about climate change and all the different things, and that's a reality, but how long the government is aware of the situation. What is the state of affairs with regard to phase 2 and 3? Because if we're talking about doing all the other things, we continue to mention it all the time. It is mentioned in political campaign. It's mentioned whenever opportunities are presented, that the harbor is the breadline. It has a lot of potential, and no doubt I fully agree with that. But what is can the government bring us up to speed with what is going on with phase 2 and 3? Sabre have a new harbor. I think the commissioner is right when he stated that it was being negotiated for a number of years, but we were negotiating too. How come Sabre got a new state-of-the-art harbor, or the funding for that to be able to carry out that exercise, and Station did not get a similar amount of money or even more in order to complete the phase 2 and 3 and even to make the relevant adjustments that they are speaking about in this document. Mention was also made of the jetty. I call it a jetty next to the boardwalk. I go there too often with my grandkids, and I look over and I see that little pier, that little jetty too, as a result of some weather that we had some time back, that too was seriously damaged. Is the government aware of this? Would this also be taken along as part of whatever repairs or adjustment that need to be made? Because I think that it is very important. In the document, the risks are immediate, measurable, and increasing. I agree. They are measurable, they are immediate, extraordinary immediate, and they are measurable. The government talk about 40 million that is needed. Is this 40 million in totality for the project? And like I mentioned, that the small jetty next to the boardwalk should also be taken into consideration. Is this also part of the plan of the government in order to knock down two birds with one stone? The government also made mention of protecting food security, and I really don't want to go in that direction today about food security. And no doubt indeed that if the pier is not accessible, if the harbor is in a bad condition, then definitely you cannot have the boats coming in. So I would have to agree with that. But on the issue of food security, I will leave that for another time, or maybe I will discuss it in the public domain. But what is the the fallback position of the government? Because now you're asking the Island Council to lobby or to put the pressure of the Island Council behind. And I am shocked because the government has been visiting Holland so often. And that's why I asked why the government and when did the government realize that this was going on? We know that when it comes around money from the federal government, you have to do a lot of convincing. And I see that we have a Dutch European who is an expert in the field, and maybe he may be able to knock on some doors and deal with some people that may be there. But the Island Council is asked to use the network, if I could use that terminology for a moment, to also put some weight behind it, and I have no problem about it. But what is the fallback position of the government? If the Dutch government is saying, listen guys, we don't have the money, what is the government prepared to do? Is a free interest loan, because that has become a common denominator here in this country, where we continue, and I will never support that. I don't believe in that, because we will be putting extra burden on the younger generation. But is that one of the considerations of the government? Because it's urgent, it's immediate, and it's measurable, and the risk is increasing based on the picture that the government is sketching here in the document. Madam Speaker, again, it will depend, because like everybody knows, and I think that I will use it whenever there's an opportunity. I don't support this government, it's clear. I have been very critical, both in this House as well as outside. But like I said before, if there are issues that I feel that is in the interest of our people, I would definitely give it my consideration. But it will depend by and large as well as to the answers that would come from the representative that is here today on behalf of the government, because it's a late hour based on the document. I read it 2-3 times already, and I see it's a clarion call, and I would want to cooperate as much as I can in the interest of our people. I'm not going to play politics just for politics' sake. That's not me. But at the same point in time, I hope that based on the questions that was put forward in this part of my contribution, that I would get the necessary answers from the side of the government as well as the expert that is available. And then accordingly, like I said, I will let the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, lead me in making whatever decision that I need to make in the interests of the people of this country. May it please you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Clydeburn Putten. Next speaker is Councilman Glenville Schmidt. You may address this meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon again to all present and those following us on various media. Well, of course, the harbor debate again. We're hearing now that it is directly tied into our food security needs. And food security, of course, is topic much discussed these days. Our harbor, of course, is along with our airport two our main ports of entry of this island, and also the two main economic sources of revenue for the island and sources of economic activity and development. So it is important, I think, that the situation, the infrastructure of both these entities, are reviewed and checked regularly. In the central or the closed door meeting we had, I asked the specific question, how is it that we are suddenly learning about this deteriorated state of the breakwater? Yeah, and it was found out that it is in worse shape than was expected. Because we're in a hurricane zone, and hurricanes come every year, at least the hurricane season rolls around every year in June. In a few days' time, it will start again for a period of 6 months. I would expect that at the end of every hurricane season that these critical infrastructure would be checked to make sure to determine then what the effects of the recent hurricane season were on the infrastructure. Besides the hurricane, we hear all the time that we are battered by North Seas and South Seas and all different types of seas, though that is in addition, or the hurricane season is in addition to these types of seas that we encounter on a regular basis, that there should be some type of regular ongoing monitoring of these type of infrastructure, and especially the breakwater. The breakwater, we know, is put together by huge rocks, and those rocks, of course, like we're hearing now, because of the state of the breakwater, the seas have their way with these rocks. I also understood in the closed-door meeting that the size of the rocks that were found in our breakwater were not the recommended size, that they were smaller than what was recommended, and the expert can correct me if I misunderstood, but I think that is what was stated. So a certain size of rock was prescribed for the breakwater, and for some reason, smaller rocks were used. So how did that happen? That smaller rocks were used than those recommended. I'm also wondering where the rocks now, when we decide, if and when we do decide to work on our breakwater again, where are the rocks going to come from? I know the last time, the first time when we got the breakwater, they came from way in the north of Europe, Scandinavia, either Sweden or Norway or one of those countries. The rocks were brought in here. That made our harbor project, the little harbor we have there, I used to call it an elephant bath, cost a total of $11 million for that little project we have there. $11 million, and I'm talking how many years ago? Back in the 90s when it was built. Yes, so a very long time ago. So if we are going to bring the recommended rocks again from north of Europe, aren't rocks available here on the island? Aren't rocks available in the region, in the Caribbean region? And how will that affect the cost, the total cost of the project that we are talking now. Again, we're living here in the Caribbean region. This is our permanent location, so the environmental situation is not going to change. If anything, it's going to get worse because of the climate change and all of that we're talking about recently. So looking to the future, we heard already, my colleague mentioned that this pier that we have here now was supposed to be the first phase of a total of 3. And when in the past it was brought up why we can't proceed right away into the second and third phases, we were always told that we needed to justify that we needed the second phase and the third phase. Justifying, I guess, meant and means that we need to show that we have sufficient activity, sufficient harbor activity, that the project will be able to, let's say, pay for itself, to bring in sufficient revenues. Well, in the 34 years, as you say, Madam Chair, apparently we were not able to justify that we needed those second and third phases. And I too congratulate our colleagues, our friends over there on SABA with the new harbor project. And it's not a luxury. They need better harbor facilities. We need better harbor facilities. We hear in the Netherlands, on the islands there too, extra monies are being spent. So these things are not luxury. But the point is, and I mentioned this when we had our lunch with the Prime Minister recently also, that we too have been lobbying and talking for a long time about relocating our harbor, in order to improve the economic prospects of the lower town area, that we can develop it more for touristical projects, and also to protect the critical infrastructure we have there, our electricity production unit there, Stucco production facility, the water production facility, to protect those facilities from sea level rise that can affect when we have serious hurricanes or storms. We know the seawater can reach the roads. So we need to protect those facilities by moving them to higher ground. So I think all of this needs to be in the picture, not only the harbor itself or the breakwater itself. All of these things need to tie together for a total development plan for our harbor and our lower town. One of the questions I have, and maybe the expert cannot answer me here today, but perhaps we can hear about it another time. So we are going back now to the breakwater. We're going back to the breakwater. Well, hopefully it will be a longer one. That's what you're saying. It will be maybe 100 meters longer. But my question is, isn't there a possibility? Why are we not considering a more solid structure? Instead of a breakwater, we hear back in the day, in historic times, we used to have a city wall running out there we can see it, it's in the water now, but it used to protect the lower town back in the day. So why are we not looking towards a more solid structure? Like a dam, or like you have, I don't know what to call them in the Netherlands, protecting the coast from the seas, can be a solid structure. I know now they are also planning to use these X blocks. Maybe that will make a difference rather than the loose rocks that we have now. but you have a more solid structure, for example, that you can even drive over it. You can drive over it for, yeah, and utilize it for other activities on top there. So I wonder if the expert has any idea about that possibility here, so that we don't rely on loose rocks again, that after a few years, again, we need to go back and replace them, and then we find that they are moving and shifting. What about a more solid construction that also will need maintenance over time, but hopefully it will be easier to maintain, and as I say, it will offer, in my view, just as good or maybe better protection to the surrounding harbor area. All right, Madam Chair, those are basically my questions. I would like to hear some answers to those few questions that I asked. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Councilman Glenville Schmidt. Third, to address this topic, a requested proposal for the breakwater of St. Eustatius is Councilman Derek Simmons.
Thank you. I'll be short. I asked similar questions concerning the rocks that they had used for the breakwater, because, it seems very strange why, you bring in rocks far away. And what I was told then, it had to do with the mass of the rocks. So they are not just things. So the rocks that they bring are very heavy. So that's why they use the rocks. But I always say we deal with Mother Nature, and we can measure, we can prepare, we can do that, but Mother Nature has a way of, I won't say willing, but dealing with things her own way. And yes, the harbor is very important to us. And I could remember our meeting with the new prime minister there by the Old Jane House. I allude to the question. I say, here we have the harbor that sometimes they say is the second busiest harbor in the entire kingdom. And I said, me living here on Statia, it doesn't trickle down to me. And so you're always seeking funds to develop, to make things better, to fix roads, but these statements are floating around. So something is wrong with the system where money is passing by, but you are not benefiting from it. So I believe when I look at this proposal, it is what it is. This is our reality. And as a council, we have to, I don't think we have a choice. We have to show our support. And I'm happy it's not basically requesting a loan or something like that will put more financial strain on the inhabitants. But I'm fully behind, if this will help, basically you gaining more, backing to get the funds to make things happen, I am there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Derek Simmons. Council Lady Raquel Spanner-Carty, welcome. I now give you the floor to address this topic.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, allow me to apologize for my late appearance. I had a meeting that I could not delay any further, so my apologies. The details of what we eventually decide to construct, I know that we always get the latest presentations with AI, we can do so much. We actually see what it will become. So I trust that when we are so far and a decision is made, we will be given what we usually get to decide on. And I think we will trust, like Councilman Simmons was saying, density of rocks. Those are not things that we consider on a daily basis. And I hope we have enough expertise in-house that we can get a needed advice and make the proper decision when the time is there. I see the deterioration of the harbor or the area and the conditions we face in bad weather as an opportunity for us to get what we need, which is an improved harbor infrastructure. I feel it's the perfect timing as it relates to similar construction happening in our region. We have the example of what is happening also in the European part of the kingdom, and it makes it feel more predestined that we use this opportunity as well to proverbially piggyback on this time. I think taking into consideration as well our vulnerability if we are left without a proper harbor as it comes to accessibility, not just for food, but transport. We continuously talk about the possibility of the Macana, even though it is not ideal, a lot of people still make use of it. And all of that, besides our food, I mean, our cargo days are the busiest days, so we cannot do without our harbor. I think and firmly believe in IJzer smeden wanneer het heet is. And this is the time, and we shouldn't delay any longer. And like Councilman Simmons say, I too will stand behind this proposal once it is finalized and we get the proper details on what will be happening. Hence, this proposal has my support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Council Lady Raquel Spana-Carty. I will now look to the Commissioner and his support staff to answer those questions that were posed by members of the Island Council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I relish the opportunity to be able to provide information now at this time to the questions that have been presented, because I took a fervent interest in this project, and I've tried to I've kept myself updated as to what everything is, most of what is going on relating to this project, even though it's not my portfolio. And I want to stay here. Stacia has acted already on this for some time. This is not something of today. We have been to Holland on more than one occasion. We have had meetings with AZK, and we have had meetings with ENV. The last meeting we was in Holland, the commissioner even had a presentation. And I don't know if she was able to let you all see that presentation, and I felt that one of the best presentations that I've ever seen in my life. And it was really relating to the harbor and giving you an idea as to a vision as to how she would like to see the development of the lower town area progress. Where the same what Councilman Smith was referring to, where the moving of the stucco out of that area, and you had actually like what you would call a nice little boulevard, you know, and the harbor itself was expanded to include a semi, like an arm, no, I can't say a circle, but it was like a circle with an opening where boats could come in. And I think that's what Councilman Smith is referring to. But when we want to make it, but this was using the same idea of a breakwater instead of a solid mass, because when you get into making a solid mass, the cost increases. You know, so that was one of the deterrent of that. But Stacia has had discussions in the Netherlands relating to funding for the harbor in the past couple of years. And as Council Lady Spanner referred to, there's a lot of, the Black Rock Harbor is now being built or is about to start. Some of the preparations have started. So this synergy, we are looking to use to to cut costs when we want to build our harbor. Because, as I indicated before, you have a whole operation ongoing in Sabre. So for them to move the station is closed. Now, for them to do that is closed, as I said, but now when they had to move the Sabre, they had to come all the way from Europe, which is a great cost. But so we are trying to do everything within our powers to make sure that we are in a position to build something that is going to last. And we are also learning from what is happening in Sabre now. Because through close cooperation with Sabre, lessons from Sabre Port Development are updating Stacia's plans. While Stacia supports the local production of X blocks used for coastal protection, the same construction method is planned for the renovation and extension of Stacia's breakwater, creating a practical opportunity for the best islands to produce climate-resilient infrastructure according to modern standards. The problem is that the risk profile has changed. There was a question relating to when we started to know that the breakwater was in bad shape. And it comes from recent engineering assessment show that the existing breakwater is in worse condition than expected, and the design standards must be strengthened because of higher wave loads, rising sea levels to meet current climate adaptive requirements. The remaining budget cannot deliver a harbor that remains reliable under the conditions Stacia must now prepare for. The funding gap is clear. A 100-meter breakwater extension, including repair of the existing breakwater, requires approximately $40 million additional. And bringing the monies that we have to approximately $50 million. A 50-meter extension, including repair of the existing breakwater, requires approximately $30 million. And I don't think the current Executive Council is not in favor of extending for 50 meters. We are looking at 100 meters because then it protects a lot more what we have there. And ideally, what Councilman Smith was referring to, that's what we would like to have. But reality is reality. So if Island Council is saying, let's enclose it all, that's what the vision that we would like to push forward. But 100 meters would bring us quite a distance to being protecting the harbor itself. But we would like to protect the whole coastline. So I'm piggybacking on what Councilman Smith suggests. Let's look at enclosing the whole coastline. Repairing only the existing breakwater requires approximately $550 million in additional funding, bringing the total to approximately $25 million, which we're going to do the same thing like what we got there, maybe make it a little higher, and it doesn't serve the purpose what we want it for. So to me, that doesn't make any sense. Just putting back what we have now. The existing budget of $17.6 million allocated from 2017, so the monies that was there for the phases is from 2017, is no longer sufficient. Approximately $2.6 million has been committed to phase 0, $2.5 million to early works for phase 1, and $1.1 million to other expenditures. The remaining budget cannot future-proof the harbor and cannot ensure reliable operation during storms below the historical one in a 100-year benchmark. The decision before the kingdom is straightforward. To me, it's a straightforward decision. Stacia is facing some challenges, and Stacia Harbor needs to be secured. No, we can't wait. Because we know what has been taking place, and we need to act now. While planning and cooperation and initial investments are already in place, we have about $10 million already in place, and we don't want to use what we have and then we have to stop. And that's the reason why we are enlisting your help. Because we have we have been lobbying in the Netherlands, and the message that we got, if the Island Council put their weight behind it, it goes a long way. We are the 100 meters to the Executive Council will provide a minimum infrastructure needed to remain supplied, safe and connected and secured in a changing climate. The changing climate what we have is the rising of the water levels, the stronger storms, and all of that. And delaying this investment, this lobbying effort, is not going to save us any money, because in the world as things are becoming more expensive. Everyday things are becoming more expensive, and the war in Iran and Ukraine has made transportation a lot more expensive. The Black Rock Harbor is expected to take approximately a year. It was originally scheduled to finish at the beginning of 2027. So we foresee that it's going to take a little longer because it hasn't really started as yet. They're still doing some initial preparation. So technically, we are not late in our lobbying efforts for the money. And the deteriorating state of the harbor, who's responsible? I think primarily as a station, I would say I like to take care of my own thing. So none of us are experts in that field. So we didn't expect this to take place, because for the time we hear these big rocks coming there with a solid mass, and they can't use rocks from station because station rocks too light. I personally felt, okay, everything should be okay because you're dealing with experts. They know what they're doing, but it turned out to be different. And so the question that was posed pertaining to who's responsible, I would like to think that in the future moving forward, we are responsible. As a OLA, we have to make sure that we maintain and safeguard whatever we have. When it comes to the structures we have in the harbor, I know the harbor personnel really takes a good care of that, because there was an incident with the same X block company where they broke off a piece of the pier and they wanted to do a little thing, and the harbor personnel basically told him, no, we don't. You have to get a contractor to do it in the right way. So they take care of the structures on land. They make sure keep an eye on it. But in the water, we don't have that expertise. So it's something that we would have to look at, that make sure that we have the engineering expertise in the future to deal with whatever's there. But the fact of the matter is now that the base of the rocks that they put down is spread out. So it's lower. So the rocks have moved. The question was asked, where are the rocks going to come from to build whatever we're going to build? We're not going to be using blocks. We're going to be using what we call X, where they're going to be locking into each other. That's why it's called X blocks, which the indication is that it's stronger because they're going to be tying into each other. I already mentioned about the rock mass, which the indication was that those rocks that they have used that came from overseas were heavier than the rocks that we have on station. Yeah. I think I've addressed most of the concerns of the council. I will leave the policy. Policy work.
So, Commissioner, you're suggesting additional information
yes,
to the remaining questions will come from your technical advisor.
Technical support.
You may address the floor, sir.
Thank you, members of the Island Council. Thank you all as well for the supportive words of the importance of our harbor. I think if I listen to all the concerns raised, what stands out is our collaborative approach to making our harbor safe and the importance of that. Some of the things mentioned as I was introduced to the topic, and unfortunately, growing up as a kid on St. Martin, I never got to see the long deep sea pier. That was even before my time. But the harbor has been here a while, and there were some concerns raised about the current state of the Yeti, the harbor dam, and the boardwalk. These will be items that need to be repaired. Similarly, there were concerns raised about, well, what about the next phases? Neither of all of these phases can be done if we don't fix the breakwater. That's kind of the baseline of our harbor. If we don't extend it, if we don't fix it, neither of all of those other fixes will be relevant in the same sense that we want it to be. What is our backup? To be honest, we only learned about the deteriorated state in the last couple of months when we're doing the research. So we're investigating that. Both first, of course, looking towards the European Netherlands and the Kingdom for funding, and other options potentially, but they haven't been explored in detail. Similarly, what happens if our harbor is damaged? What do we do then? Emergency harbor and so forth. So these are options that are currently explored as well. In terms of the options of the rocks used, as the Commissioner already mentioned, we have a number of versions in the design process that we're exploring. One of them is the same X-block size as Seba. One is a slightly smaller X-block size because our water conditions are less heavy. And a third version is the rock armor or rubble mount as we currently have it. It is looking like initial investigations, the rock armor the rubble mount is the most expensive because it's also the most labor intensive. As to where these things may come from, there's a number of quarries that are being explored from Norway to St. Kitts to other areas in the region. Of course, always looking at the most cost-effective option for the highest quality of material. There was also a comment about the solid structure versus rubble mount. Something that comes with waves are energy stored in the sea, and that needs to be released once it approaches the shore. If it hits a rubble mount or an X-blocks, etc., that energy can dissipate. If it hits a fixed wall, the wall needs to be so much more stronger to be able to dissipate that energy. Then in terms of the money that we are requesting in the Netherlands, is it only for the breakwater or is it also incorporating other stuff, the other fixes? At the moment, the urgency is so high that we are requesting already a considerable amount for the breakwater and the extension only. But it is a gesture that we are working in progress, this momentum, and that provides openings. We've also been assured to exploring further options of the development of our harbor and fixing our basic infrastructure. I hope that with this, some of the answers, some of the questions have been answered. And again, I appreciate the support for this extra campaign in the Netherlands to raise the importance of our breakwater and the safety of our harbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and technical support. We move to a second round of deliberation. I'm sure the Council would have some follow-up questions. This round, 10 minutes allotted per speaker maximum. First, to address the floor, Councilman Clive Van Putten.
Madam Speaker, I pose a number of questions. And they are here, the public is listening. And I got a number of WhatsApp where the voters, the people are saying, but the Commissioner did not answer your question. But I would like to thank the experts. But ignorance is bliss. And when we become so arrogant that we feel that we know it best, and we alone will make the decision, then we have a problem. Madam Speaker, I said before, and I'm going to repeat again, the problem in this country is that we are not proactive. We are reactive. We wait until either the calf drown, it almost drowned, then we run in panic. The Europeans are now in saber, the Dutch government, they have their money there, making big investment. And like I said, I'm happy for our friends and comrades and the people of Sabre that this long-awaited wish and paramount need is becoming a reality. The issue is that these people are proactive, not reactive. We wait until the 40 years nota would have been completed, and then we run to Holland. There's investors, Madam Speaker, who have spoken to government. And even when investors come in, you may not always agree with certain things that they put on the table. The art of negotiating, Madam Speaker, lobbying, doing negotiation, bringing your experts and not you going in a meeting with professionals and not really maybe knowing exactly the details, the technical details and the like. And you feel that 2 to 3 people could make a decision for the entire country. Like I said, Madam Speaker, I could play politics. As I said before, I'm not going to bow my head to none of them. The one to be is the Johnny come lately. I could play. And I said before, I want to, despite the fact of my clear position, I want to be able to cooperate. Because I know the games that are being played. But Madam Speaker, if I come here on such an important topic, at the last minute, where the government is sending a memo and asking for the Island Council to give support. And I ask questions and they take a technical civil servant with European background, I assume, and the commissioner that is responsible to this council.
Councilman Van Putten, are you suggesting that your questions were not answered?
But you know they was not answered. But if the public is out there could write and say they were not answered, you as the speaker sitting here, you know they are not answered. But Madam Speaker, I will vote against the proposal. I will vote against it, and I know that's what it wants. But I will defend it. Because again, I'm saying that at the last moment, it isn't yesterday we know the situation on the harbor. I have multiple people that I would consider experts in the field that are upping and giving me questions, ask this, ask that. I wish I had known before that this was coming, and I will help to better prepare you to ask more in-depth questions. It's only to them aware. Yet, I was prepared to cooperate. But when I ask questions, Madam Speaker, and they take an outsider with no disrespect to the expert to answer, and your own that is responsible to this council is so swell-headed and arrogant, Madam Speaker, and refuse to answer the question, I would vote against. And I will defend politically out there with the constituents why I vote against. May it please you, Madam Speaker. I have nothing further to answer. Whether they go lobby in Israel, Holland, or wherever they're going, I will not be involved. I would vote against it, and I will defend it politically. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your position on this, Councilman. I just want to say that the gentleman in question is not an outsider. He's a Dutch citizen like all of us seated in this room. I need to say that because constitutionally, he's a citizen, a Dutch citizen like yourself and myself and everyone who's seated in this meeting at this moment.
Madam Speaker, again, I'm being lectured. I know he's a Dutch citizen. When I say outsider, I say with no offense. I meant it in the context that that somebody who maybe just recently, because this is the first time I'm seeing him, that somebody who came from outside. I'm not suggesting that he's a foreigner, because I know he have a Dutch European, I could see he's Dutch. So again, I'm saying that it's not in a way to, so please don't throw gasoline on the fire. Because I made a statement here a couple of weeks ago about the deputy governor, and I see they make memes and they blow it up. And that was not my intention. I heard my colleague on his homeland defense came to my defense with it. So I don't want it to be said here today, because they might have a meme in a couple of minutes, that I'm calling the gentleman a foreigner. I didn't call him a foreigner. When I said outsider, I mean somebody that is not from here, not living with us here all the time. And that he saw the wisdom in answering the question. And a commissioner that is responsible to this council feels that he is above the law, feels that he's so swell-headed and so arrogant, would refuse to answer the questions, let him carry on. The day of reckoning, Madam Speaker, is soon at hand. And I could play the game better than them. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for clarifying on the term that you use, but that is also good for public awareness and consumption. I will now ask Councilman Glenville Smith to address the meeting in round 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield my time in this round.
Thank you, Councilman Schmidt. Councilman Derek Simmons.
I also yield my time.
Thank you, Councilman Simmons. Council Lady Raquel Spanner-Carty, you may address the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing else to add.
Thank you, Council Lady Raquel Spanner-Carty. We will now go over to the voting on the proposal, but before we do that, I will, for public awareness, for the content of the decision that is accompanying this agenda point, I will ask the registrar to read the council decision known as the Raadsbesluit, so that the public can be aware of its content.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will now read the Island Council's decision 07 of 26. The date of the Island Council meeting is the 28th of May, 2026. The subject is What? Wrong decision. 1 second. Testing? Yeah. Okay, one more time. So I'll read the Island Council decision. Island Council meeting of the 28th of May, 2026. The subject is the Island Council support for additional harbor renovation funding. The proposal is considering that the harbor is deteriorating faster than anticipated. The risks are immediate, measurable, and increasing. The budget shortfall has been clearly identified. Delays cost more than action. Implementation capacity and procurement structures are already in place. Unique inter-island collaboration and synergy opportunities currently exist. The Island Council is requested to engage with the standing committees responsible for the kingdom relations, infrastructure and water management, agriculture, fisheries, food security and nature, otherwise known as LVVN, climate and green growth, otherwise known as KGG, and economic affairs and climate. To also advocate the paramount importance of the harbor as the lifeline of St. Eustatius, emphasize the food security and emergency preparedness implications of harbor failure, highlight the equality and kingdom responsibility in relation to previous investments in Seba and Terschelling, request the immediate availability of an additional investment budget of 40 million euro for the realization of a climate resilient harbor for St. Eustatius.
Thank you, Registrar, for reading the council decision. I now go over to voting, and I start with Councilman Clyde Van Putten.
I would like to motivate my vote. I came into the council earlier despite the lateness of the proposal, and I came with the intention to give my support. But again, I'm saying that when mights try to be over rights, and when people who feel that they know could bring their personal agendas in this council, in the people's house, and disrespect duly elected members of the council, I'm not going to permit them to take the eyes and pass me. I recognize that the situation is dire, not now. I have said before that the government is not proactive, it is reactive. And because of the failure of the caretaker government to respond appropriately and accordingly to valid questions that I pose on this floor pertaining to the matter at hand, regrettably, I vote against the proposal that is now before this House. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Clyde Van Putten. Councilman Glenville Schmidt.
I vote for the proposal.
Thank you, Councilman Glenville Schmidt. Councilman Derek Simmons.
I vote for.
Thank you, Councilman Simmons. Council Lady Raquel Spana-Carty.
For, Madam Chair.
With 3 votes for and 1 against, the Raadsbesluit is herewith carried by a majority. Agenda point 6 regards the announcements of the Executive Council and Island Governor, Commissioner Merkman. Are there any announcements on your part?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I realized I wasn't allowed to speak at the end of the second round, but I'm just glad that the proposal was carried by serious people that dealing with the people's business. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And I feel a tension in here, and I feel the need to say that I ask you, Commissioner, in your responsibility towards this floor, to answer the questions and any other party dynamic. Let us, for as much as possible, keep it not on the floor of the Island Council. That is my request. I must say this because I think everybody who sits here is serious about the business of Statia. I must say that. And I would like to conclude on this topic. I don't want party dynamics spilling over here in the Island Council, and we come here to do serious business. Do you have any announcements, Commissioner?
I don't have any announcement, but anyway.
I would like to, based on the Articles 49 and 51 of the RVO, the Regulations of Order of the Island Council, announce that there has started a firearms surrender campaign that concludes on the 31st of May, which basically asks anyone within our community for the safety and protection of our island on the broadest sense, that if you have any firearms, that you can surrender these at the police station, no questions asked. It is in the interest of our public order and safety of our community that we do this. It also means this campaign is ongoing here on Statia, Saba, and Bonaire. It is similar to campaigns that are carried on the other islands of the Dutch Caribbean as well as in the Netherlands, and therefore taking into light the concerns that we have about public order and safety, especially the potential for undermining criminal events, that we as a community do all that is within our responsibility, collective responsibility, to keep our island as safe and secure as we possibly can. On that note, I conclude agenda point 6, and we move to agenda point 7, which is the conclusion of this meeting, closing. I want to thank everyone present here, as well as the public listening by way of radio and social media platforms. Thank you for what I consider a rather fruitful discussion, and I ask us all to please stand and show our respect to the local anthem, the Golden Rock Song. This meeting is herewith officially closed.